So I've been an entrepreneur in the internet now for 12 years. I know I am not a detail-oriented, process-oriented guy. Let me give you an example of this. Like, I love to do this, communicate, set goals, set manner. I set expectations, I recruit teams. I set a milestone and a metric and coach people to get there. And when people are moving in different directions, I bring them in the room and say, okay, let me intervene for a bit because we're not moving in the right direction. That's what I like to do. I like to actually spend a lot of my time with people. I gain energy from people. My president and COO, Frank, is nonverbal. And this is his own description. He doesn't like to talk. He has to sometimes because he's a leader. But he likes getting things done. He graduated top of West Point. He was captain in the Green Berets. And when I asked him why, when he was, it was Valentine's Day and it was time for him to, make reservations. He has 3 reservations at 3 different times with 3 different cuisines in case she's running late. This is deeply ingrained in his nature, a contingency plan for everything. And I asked him, how did you get this way? And his truthful answer was, if I wasn't that way, people died. That's what I've been trained to do, from West Point all the way through. And people did die, and I try to minimize the losses. So when you have those kinds of stakes, that's why I am the way I am. And he lives, eats, and breathes operations, and he's phenomenally good at it. So he's good at the thing I'm worst at. So that's why I won't start unless I've got the basic skills required to be successful. So don't spend so much time on your weaknesses, honestly. Think about what you do best. And that doesn't have to be this perfect model, but what works best for what industry, and really develop that. So that's my response to do what follow your passion. Is first make sure it's something that you're good at. Make sure that your weakness is not something that will kill you in that job. A non-detail-oriented surgeon, no matter how brilliant, is a very bad surgeon because their cost of their mistakes are huge, right? So let me see. Second example of advice. Go to graduate school, it creates options. And there's a whole category of these things. Go take this job, it'll create options. It's a good learning experience. It sounds really good because particularly being Asian American, there's this huge emphasis on education. And I think everyone should get a college education, no question. My parents are extreme. My mother's a pediatrician. My father's an endocrinologist. I have 2 doctors. They believe business school is a trade school. They thought it was a complete waste of time. They think it's way too risky. They didn't understand what the internet was. I said, no. So when I was getting my, I happened to go to get my MBA at Harvard, and I was thinking about doing the JD MBA program. So it's getting your law degree and your business degree, and instead of a 2-year MBA program, it's a 4-year graduate degree, right? So it's 3 years of law school plus 1. And you think it's just 2 more years, right? And they said, it'll create options. It's a fallback position from this risky thing, of business, entrepreneurship. And that was before they knew I was going to do the internet in 1995. So I'm sitting in business school going, I don't ever want to be a lawyer. It's very strange now that I'm CEO of LegalZoom, got a company, the largest online provider of legal documents. I'm meeting a lot of lawyers. I don't like what they do. I don't like the life that they live. I don't like the fact that it's like, to me, it's like my parents, where if someone calls and they're on emergency and we're at dinner at 9 o'clock, they go and take it, right? I have a phenomenal lawyer at LegalZoom that we use. He makes $600 an hour, probably brings home millions of dollars a year. But he was on the phone with me in a conference call an hour and a half before his wedding in the limo in Napa. And I said, what are you doing? You're about to be married. And he said, yeah, I got some time, so I thought that's not he's phenomenally successful. And if you're wired that way, go for it. But I know that wasn't right for me. So I said, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna just jump into the internet. Now, fast forward a little bit about, sure, it would have only been 2 years, but that means graduating in 1997, I'm dating myself now, versus graduating in 1999. For those of you that may not remember, the bubble crashed in 2000 March. So, when I think about what the difference in my life would have been, the internet has been and will always be constant change. The person who leads constant change most often is the person most experienced with constant change. When I look at a technologist, people say, go for the young 16-year-old techie out of the garage. For certain open source or certain problems, I do look for those people. But I also look for the guy that has survived 3 or 4 changes, see changes in technology, and he learns much faster because he knows where things have come, right? And he knows how to manage people around that. So, where if I had stayed, I would have had $150,000 of debt, graduating in '99. I would have likely, with that amount of debt, probably taken a year or 2 to pay it off as an associate making whatever, 150 grand a year. And so I would have been a first-year associate, newly minted JD MBA, trying to pay off debt at the time of the internet bubble. Versus by getting in early and doing what I was passionate about. But it was actually something that I thought would be valuable. I wasn't sure at the time, frankly. So you can poke fun at my advice anytime. But I started in '95, and when the internet strategy for Star Wars for the prequel came up at business school, it ended up being a project that 60% of my class applied for. That's the project that me and my team got. And so we did the internet strategy for Star Wars. Pretty cool. And then when it came to e-commerce, because I was trying to build an e-commerce apparel play, I ended up, through a long string of events, advising jcrew.com, and then restructuring that and building that out and taking it from 2 million to about 30 million in sales in 11 months, which became the largest online apparel site. And then because of that, everyone on 7th Avenue, that's the big merchandise retail street in New York, they only care about were you successful. They believed the only person that's successful on the internet is someone under 30 that's been successful before. So at the end of it, everyone started turning to us to build their internet divisions. So we built out Barney'sNewYork.com, we advised Ferragamo, we built HiFi.com, it's the largest home theater site at the time. And in 2000, 6 weeks before the bubble was crashing, I was sitting in front of a group of analysts in Hong Kong as CEO of Studio Direct, raising $250 million 6 weeks before the bubble crashed. And we actually raised it, closed it, and then the market crashed. If I was 6 weeks later, if I was 24 hours later in those 6 weeks, my life would have been fundamentally different. I was working for the largest global supply chain company in the world with a ridiculous amount of capital, far more than we ever needed, with a pure play team going after a huge opportunity, being apprenticed under 2 billionaires that would be my personal mentors, that were incredibly smart, incredibly generous, and very humble, and have taught me many different things. So this whole create options, go to graduate school, it's an alphabet soup disease. It may be appropriate for you, but if there's one word of advice contrary to that, is make sure you understand that every decision that you make in your career is opens doors and closes others. You have to be conscious of the doors that you're opening with each decision and the doors that you're closing. In my life, if I had closed the doors to the internet from '97 through 2000, which is only 3 years, but think what 3 years has been in the internet space, right? Think what happened to Google in 3 years. Think where Yahoo has come down in the last 3 years. Time is opportunity. Every decision you make closes doors. People only think about the doors that they open. They do not think about the doors that they close. That is the biggest single career bad advice that people take. When I think of mistakes, they do not think consciously. When you're younger, every door seems open to you, and frankly, largely they are. You have this enormous breadth of things that you can do. As you progress in your career, once you're 5 years, 10 years down the path, it is much more difficult to start over. You can. I'm just saying it's a lot more difficult. So people say, oh, let me go to medical school and then I'll figure out what I want to do. Or let me go to law school, let me figure out what you want to do. That's 3 years plus, that's 5 years of your life down a path that really is not terribly relevant for many other things. Do you want to find that out? $150,000. And then, debt is another issue that definitely forces you down certain paths and closes doors. So By the way, that's not my advice, it's a friend of mine's advice, and I'm doing another career, and I thought it was the best advice. If you think of all of your decisions in your career as opening and closing doors, be very conscious of